Welcome back to our yearly roundup of all the weird news that has happened in 2021. If you're new around here and have missed the past 4 episodes, which featured all the weird news from the first quarter of 2021, then make sure you head back and watch those after this one, because they're chock full of strangeness, which I think you might just be interested in learning about. I'm back today with 2 more weird tales from the year just past, and as a reminder, this won't be your usual news roundup. This is strictly the stuff that makes you go, what? As quite frankly, politics, the global panny-d, and the general destruction of the planet are not the kind of energy we want to be knowingly dragging into the new year. Now that's not to say that these stories don't dally with the dark side, because they most definitely do, but there's also some light-hearted strangeness too. But don't worry, if anything is going to be hideously awful, then I'll give you a heads up first. So with the disclaimer out of the way, let's jump into May. Before we do that, if you are new here, then hi, my name's Nikki and I make podcasts and videos about all sorts of weird stuff. So if you're into that, which I have a sneaking suspicion you might be because the algorithm has brought you here, then please hit subscribe so we can hang out together again. And if you're not new here, then welcome back, old fiend. Nice to see you again. The emergence of the 17-year cicada. For our first story today, I strangely don't feel at all surprised that I'm going to be talking about a plague of insects. After all, the world has given us many other biblical-style blights to contend with in 2021, so at this point, there's really not much that phases me. So, cicadas. Lots of them. So, to go back to basics, and for those of you who are not entomologically minded, I'll explain exactly what these insects are and why they cause enormous plagues. The periodical cicada, as you may be able to guess from the name, is an insect which only emerges during a certain window of time. Periodical cicadas, of which there are 7 different species, have an emergence period of 17 years, meaning they only appear every 17 years for a period of around 4 to 6 weeks, before disappearing again for another 17 years. The insect, which is quite stunning to look at, mainly due to the fact that they're regularly between 2 to 3 inches in size with glowing red eyes, imagine a small mothman which isn't so furry, like to emerge pretty much all at once. Given that most broods of cicadas are millions strong, this can create quite the spectacle. If you're someone from the UK, imagine Flying Ant Day, but for 6 weeks straight, and they're huge and they shout loudly all the time, but at least they only do this once every 17 years. The cicadas, which call southwest Virginia, parts of North Carolina, and West Virginia in the States home, spend around 16 years underground as nymphs, eating tree roots, but when they emerge to their adult form, they only have one goal, and that is to breed as much as possible. The adult cicadas then lay eggs on trees, these eggs hatch teeny tiny baby cicadas in their larval form, and after they've dropped out of their birth tree, they dig underground, and that's where they stay for the next 16 years or so. Entomologists theorise that this mass emergence of cicadas is to do with the biological need to survive. Cicadas don't have any defence mechanisms to protect them from the wider world, so the bugs come out all together, as they have decided there is safety in numbers. If millions of bugs appear all at the same time, then there's more chance that the predators won't be able to eat the whole of one population, and that's exactly what they did in May. Of course, there will be thousands of insects eaten by other animals, but when those animals are full, they'll stop feeding, and so the cicadas are free to go about their business of getting busy, making more cicadas. To do this, they create an enormous amount of noise. So why would a bug that's defenceless want to basically be using a megaphone to say, "Hey, I'm here. Feel free to eat me"? Well, it's to attract a mate. Male cicadas call to female cicadas using a variety of techniques to max out their internal subwoofer. When they're making this absolute racket, they also need to be listening to see if any females respond. But the joke is, you've got Barry, Gary and Larry next to you also shouting, and the females are quieter than the males, responding with a more rhythmic tapping type noise. So the guys really have their work cut out for them. Alongside all of that to contend with, there's a type of fungus that has developed which attaches itself to cicadas, which causes some hideous stuff to happen to them. Massospora is a fungus which only affects cicadas, and once an individual is infected, they effectively have the bottom half of their body replaced by fungus. This then means that as they move around in their adult form, they spread the fungus around to other cicadas, so the cycle continues. However, in a kind of dystopian brain takeover, the fungus is not just content with just replacing part of the insect's body, it also causes some strange functionality to happen in the brain. The male cicadas actually begin to mimic females, and so they attract more males to hang out with them, spreading the fungus even further. I strongly believe that at some point, mushrooms are just going to rule the earth. They're absolute masterminds, and one day they will come for us, I swear. Scientists are still largely confuzzled as to why cicadas do what they do, and only having the chance to study their unusual behaviours once every 17 years or so does really make it quite difficult to come to any kind of conclusion as to how these animals communicate together from underground. But for now, cicadas will keep their secrets for the next 17 years. Continuing on with our weird animal theme, visitors to a beach in Orange County in California had a fright when they found a bizarre creature washed up on the shore. Ben Estes, who was taking a leisurely stroll on the beach, came across a black blob on the sand, and on closer inspection, realised it was something very odd. He alerted lifeguards on the beach, and they called rangers from the Crystal Cove State Park, of which the beach is part of. The rangers came and photographed the creature and asked marine biologists to identify it for them. The creature was a deep-sea Pacific football fish, the kind of which has never washed up so intact before. The football fish is a type of anglerfish. You know the ones, they have a little porch light over their head so they can see what's going on in front of them. And so they can also ask fish politely to come and see what's going on inside their bodies. Due to the nature of where they live in the very deep ocean, around 300 feet down, and the atmospheric pressure the fish undergo when emerging to the surface, they usually, 9 times out of 10, explode or are eaten along the way by other fish. So this one, looking like it had just been created and plopped on the sand, was a treat for marine biologists so they could use this fish for research. It wasn't ascertained as to how the fish got to where it was. Its body was unscathed, suggesting it didn't die from any external injury, so perhaps this was just an old fish that had died of natural causes and then somehow miraculously ended up on the surface. The perfectly preserved 18-inch carcass, which is that most likely to be a female due to the size as males are significantly smaller, was put on ice until a suitable institution decided they would like it for their collection. And I hope she finds a perfect forever home in a museum where she can be appreciated for hundreds of years. Thanks for joining me for those weird stories. I hope you enjoyed them. You know the drill by now if you've been around for a while, but if you're new here, then please subscribe, come and follow me on my social media, and if you like the show and you want me to make more of them, then please consider becoming a Patreon supporter so you can get your mitts on exclusive content, an extra episode per month, some goodies through the post, and depending on the tier you pick, have your name read out at the end of the episode. Like our executive Patreon producers, Amy, Barry, Bethan, Kate, Mary, Ren, Sam, Sarah and Veronica. And huge thanks to all of my other patrons too. If a long-term commitment isn't your thing, but you just wanted to send a tip or a gift from my Amazon wishlist, yes, I know Amazon are evil. If anybody's got any tips as to where else I can host a wishlist, I'd really like to know. But I would massively appreciate it if you do any of those things, and I'll leave all the links in the show notes on the podcast and the description on my YouTube video. And there's also a nifty little button on YouTube now where it says thanks, which is like a little virtual tip jar, so if you're feeling generous, then that's an option as well. An enormous thank you for even considering doing any of these things, as it means the world when I get any notifications like that or a surprise parcel through the post. So huge big squishes if you're part of that gang, you're the absolute bestest. Thank you for joining me for this episode. I've been Nikki Drees, and I'll see you ghouls next time for June.